Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Backlot Banter. My name is Tucker Hazel, and this is my co-host who has long yearned for the mines. This is Tanner Dykstra, and today we're here to talk about a Minecraft movie. This has been long in the works, and we have finally been able to sit down in a theater and watch it. And apparently, so is everyone else, because this is making bucket loads of cash.
Buco bucks.
And we're here to give our slightly late thoughts on it, but Tanner Dykstra, you have seen a Minecraft movie. You've seen Jack Black. You've seen Jason Momoa and all of the contents therein. Give me your thoughts on this film.
Ooh, Tucker. A Minecraft movie is really a movie that you have to buy what it's selling.
Sure.
And I will say that I was not sold. I was not bought into the memery, the eventization of the TikTok edit memes, and so on and so forth. And so a Minecraft movie really did not work for me. It was a I don't want to use the word torturous because that seems a little over the top, but like I just did not have a good time sitting in that theater with some people who were doing that. It seems like I caught a theater like opening like Thursday night opening where like that hadn't fully been the wave yet of like the shouting along the lines with everything.
Yeah.
But like I will get into what I think this movie is selling and why it didn't work for me. But I found it to be very, very slight in terms of anything that I usually go to movies
Sure.
for, and
Yeah.
also ultimately a movie that is not for me. Though I do want to talk about that as well.
Yeah.
My demographic, or what I go to movies for. But Tucker, I want to know what you thought. You were waiting with bated breath all weekend.
God.
Mr. Big Shot over here was in the Big Apple
Yeah.
playing with the Switch 2 before everybody else.
There is only one thing that could stop me from seeing the live-action Minecraft adaptation on opening night. It's being invited to New York to play the Switch 2. And and God conspired to have these two things happen. Unfortunately, I had to make a choice. But I have now seen it, and I watched the opening weekend because nothing was going to stop me.
Perfect.
Not flight delays, not Nintendo, not God himself coming down
nothing.
and stopping me from seeing this movie. And I did see it, and I like what you said at the end, that there's really almost nothing in this movie that I go to see movies for. You look at my favorite movies list. You look at the movies that I'll praise a bunch, and this movie lacks a lot of what good movies have, frankly.
Well,
and so I see the low Rotten Tomato score, and I see the sort of conflicted general opinions on this movie. I'm like, yeah, I totally get it, but
I hear a big old fat jiggly butt coming.
it's Jack Black's gigantic butt coming up my mouth.
Yeah.
I had a great time watching this movie. This is a totally distinct theatrical experience. There is not another movie like a Minecraft movie. This movie has its own sense of characterization and pacing and world building, obviously. And it sells its own self so hard, and it commits to its own bit so hard that just after like 10 minutes of this movie, I'm like, all right, we're in. I know what this movie can be like, and it was a smooth ride all the way through. I was surprised I was surprised to see how quickly this went by, because it's almost 2 hours. Like
it's an hour 40 with that's with credits and everything, so it's probably closer to an hour and a half.
So yeah, but it flew by for me. I think that everyone in the movie knows what the movie is going for, and I also was really a fan of the visual style of it. I thought it worked really well, and so I just had a great time, and I think this will go down as a movie that a lot of people have very strong affinity for because it knows its own style so well, and if it is something that you enjoy, it has that, whatever it is, that mysterious Z factor. It has that in spades.
Yeah. Tucker, to me, that Z factor is, and I'm going to come right out and say it, that to me, that Z factor is a lazy, overly ironic, like meme sensibility that is not trying to be anything greater. That is not earnestly pursuing anything meaningful. It is like, I don't think that version of the movie would not have been a success. The earnest version of the Minecraft movie would not be a success. They knew exactly what they were doing in crafting this movie the way that it is. Casting the people that are in it, writing the jokes the way that it is, writing the script, basically throwing any sense of like motivation, arc, pacing, storytelling tropes, or even like like paths, I guess you will, if you
Sure.
want to say that, like any sense of like pre-established, like these are what makes movies work, and like these are the things that all movies have that make them work. They threw all that out the window just to make like an event that is fun to go to laugh at the movie, not like laugh at the jokes in the movie necessarily, but like, feel like you're laughing at the expense of the movie and how ridiculous it is that they made this, as opposed to the creators of the movie earnestly trying to craft a solid cinematic experience, but
Sure.
rather an experience that is doing exactly what it is doing right now,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is people pulling their phones out, screaming at the top of their lungs whenever he says chicken jockey. That is exactly what they're in pursuit of.
Yeah. And what's interesting is I didn't really have that in my theater. I mean,
Oh, interesting.
I
Okay.
had I was in a Sunday night IMAX theater. It was probably 60% full, which is a lot of
Sure.
people for a big IMAX screen. And I would say I had an 85% respectful Minecraft viewing audience,
Okay,
which is
good.
really high apparently for what this movie is going
Uh-huh.
for. And I think that you make an interesting point about the way that this movie is crafted to be a social experience more than anything. And I don't know. I certainly don't prefer that for the way that I watch movies. The reason why
Mhm.
I engage with the art form as deep as I do, reviewing movies on Quest and things. But I think it is a very fascinating reflection of the desires in current culture and why I think
Well,
this movie
yes.
will have a very fervent fan base, and I think it will continue to grow and then gain quite a bit of nostalgia down the line, is because it is speaking to the sensibility that people have to want to come together and make something be a party and have things that they can quote back and forth to their friends. And especially with the massive Minecraft fan base, one thing that I do want to praise this movie very, very strongly for is this is one of the most faithful adaptations of anything to movie that has ever been done. This movie is
Okay.
so sold on its own internal identity, and I think that makes it really, really work if you understand the way in which things have worked in Minecraft for well over a decade at this point.
And,
Um,
and this is what I want to ask you about.
yeah.
I want to go down this route a little bit because Tucker, we are men of a certain age.
Hmm.
I have played Minecraft. You have played a lot more Minecraft than
Yes.
I
Yes.
have. So this is why I turn to you as an expert on these subjects, because I come into it with a cursory knowledge
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
Minecraft. I have played in the past. I haven't played in years,
Yeah.
obviously. But to me, this identity, this translation of source material to film
Yeah.
is as skin deep as it gets.
Sure.
It is Jack Black saying, I mean, it is the meme. It is
Yeah.
Jack Black
Yeah.
saying, "Here is a thing from Minecraft," and then cut to cameras whip pan to thing from Minecraft.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, all right, we're gonna do that 200 more times in this movie. And I guess that is the nature of making a film adaptation of a sandbox game.
Yeah. Of course. There's no narrative to Minecraft.
Of course, and so then the creators of the film had effectively a wide open world, a wide open lane to craft the story, and the story that they made. I think
Yeah.
my
You
thoughts are
know.
pretty clear at this point.
Yeah. Uh,
But no, like, what are your thoughts on like the Minecraft identity as it exists in the movie? Is it am I wrong in saying that it's just skin deep, like thing from Minecraft?
hmm.
Here it is.
Um. I agree to a certain extent, but
Okay.
I think the skin it is skin deep, but I think this is some pretty thick skin.
Okay.
Which is I don't really know what that means, but I'm
What
gonna
that
try
means?
to
Yep.
explain it.
Okay.
Because I do think that this is it's a very deep commitment and a genuine reverence and an understanding of the source material within the identity of the world that this movie creates. A lot of people critique adaptations, whether that is
Hmm.
cartoon adaptations or comic book adaptations or live
Hmm.
adaptations of like Disney movies and things. Of course, this
Yeah.
is a little bit different than that, but there are a lot
So,
of
but people have been talking about a live action Disney remake
yes
as of late. I don't know if
recently.
they have.
Correct.
Is there?
But there's a lot of conversation about how faithful you should be to
Sure.
to source material to make it work in in a cinematic adaptation, especially a live action one. We watch the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and it makes a lot more sense that goofy things are happening there because it's an animated
Uh-huh.
movie and whatever.
Yeah, I actually feel very similar to this movie as I did to the Super Mario Brothers movie.
And that's totally fair, yeah.
Yeah.
But then there are the movies that I think take it a step further. Whereas a complaint that is often levied at superhero adaptations is that they don't
Yep.
lead enough into the goofiness of comic books.
Mm-hmm.
Is they'll tone down the costumes, they'll make the powers more realistic, they'll ground things in reality a lot more, and it can take a lot of the whimsy and original charm that created a passion for that original source material and sort of strip that back to ground it in reality. But then there are movies like the Flintstones movies, movie that John Goodman is in, that is so
Yep.
committed to its own bit of this is how the Flintstones was in the cartoons, so we're going to do that in the movie. And I think a Minecraft movie is a much more in that camp, and I have an amazing amount of respect for that because it makes this movie not work in this way that most movies do. I think, again, I agree with what you said at the beginning. This is not the kind of thing that I go to movies for. But as someone who has a deep history and understanding of Minecraft culture and the way that people make in-jokes about the series and how it's evolved over time, and the way that the physics of the world works and like each of these items and things, having that translated to things that they actually made, like they have all these props that I think look so cool, the way that they frame different sequences or different sets around things from the game. I'm like, they really did care a lot about this, and I think it shows in the way that this movie is of its own style, and that style is something that, again, as someone who has a deep history with Minecraft, I was able to sit down and appreciate what they created because I knew they appreciated what they were pulling inspiration from.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So I can understand that, and I think where I come at this one, because here's what I will say. From a production standpoint, it is pretty immaculate. Like that is what I will say. Is that, I was sitting in the theater, not having a good time with any of the jokes or any of the characters or any of the story, but I was just looking at things in the background and I was like, damn, that is like, a pretty solid like recreation of like what a Minecraft zombie would look like, or
Yeah.
what a creeper would look like, or what a tree would fucking look like from Minecraft taken into real life. Like I was like, damn, they got it there, they nailed it there. But then Tucker, and this is I think that this is an appropriate time to fold this in.
Sure.
Less than 24 hours after I saw a Minecraft movie in theaters, I, with two friends of ours, sat down and watched the unfinished work print of the movie that has been floating around online. If you're on Twitter, if you're on, if you're anywhere even similarly related to like video game or film Twitter, you've probably seen this to some extent. The unfinished CGI version of the film that is, rubbery. You can see the wires on people. You can see the costumes and everything like that. I watched that. And that really lays bare how much the like post production on this makes this thing even worthwhile halfway. That is the reason why people are going to this, or even like interested vaguely in this, is the Minecraft one-to-one production design, the VFX of creating this world. Which is, as we kind of pointed out, like the only thing that you can really do to like hook people into seeing a film adaptation of a live action like sandbox game. So yeah, from that standpoint, I was like, man, like that is really like the only thing this movie has going for it, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the visual style of it is something that people were heavily critiquing when the first trailers came out, because it was kind of hard for us to understand what they would do. Like it was just gonna be like in a forest, and the answer is no. This is the most but it's not just a forest. They didn't just like go out into the fucking Pacific Northwest
Tucker,
to film
they
this.
go to a village, and Tucker, if you can believe it, they go to a freaking mine, buddy.
They do go to a mine. Yeah. What point was I making?
I don't know.
Sorry.
When we first saw this, people were critiquing the look of it.
Yeah, and I certainly understood that, but having now seen the film, I think it really does work. I mean, the way that this movie is like sugary colored. I mean, it is so bright and everything is so saturated. And they have all of these crazy vistas in the background of mountains with lava flowing down and giant archways in the sky. It is, I think it's a really fascinating visual design that, when mixed with the physical props and sets that they did make that you can see people interacting with, I can tell where the decision was made to saturate up the the physical stuff that they made make it look even
Mhm.
more cartoony, and like everything has like a little bit of varnish on it, so it's kind of shiny. And then like ground the CGI in realism so that like the zombies have like realistic shirt textures, and like
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the facial expression on the skeleton is like a little bit more like an actual thing than it's like just pixels. And
Mhm.
I think it ends up meshing really well. The CGI I think is you can say what you want about the way that that you like the designs of like the characters and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it's good the vast majority of the time. There's some really weird green screening occasionally, but that's what you
Oh
get
yeah. Well,
when you're doing literally this. Um,
when you're shooting everything, basically everything on a green screen, like
yeah.
of course, having seen the work print of this with all the CGI stripped out, the flying stuff obviously is all CGI, and
Yeah.
like that's when I mentioned like you can see the wires on
Mhm.
people. That's mostly that, and then the ending where it's
Oh
just
yeah.
like I don't know, like it's just all like
Dark.
cobblestone
Yeah,
blocks or
yeah, yeah.
whatever they're on, or obsidian, I suppose. You're like, oh, that's just a gray sound stage
Of
that they're on
course.
right now.
Of course it is.
Um, but no, yeah. What I will say about this, Tucker, is I praised the look of this film, and I want to be a little bit more specific. I also find the direction, as with many blockbusters of our era, to be quite unintentional from
Hmm.
from when they were actually filming it. I think this is blatantly present as it is a lot of the times when just you look at you take any sequence out of a Minecraft movie and like we're doing shot reverse shot and just everything is backlit.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
the
Sure.
light source is
Definitely.
just the light source is just everywhere because
Hmm.
we don't know what's going to be behind anyone or where they're going to be standing or what they're standing on
Yeah, yeah.
really, or where the light source will actually be in relation to them. So who fucking cares? It doesn't matter. It's just a movie. Who cares? And I find that to be a pretty reductive and I don't know what I don't want to say anti-artistic, but like stripping intentionality out of art is not
Sure.
necessarily something that I find worth in. And also there was a second point that I was going to bring up. The backlighting, and then I don't know, Tucker, something else. Yeah, the CGI is like not perfect a lot of the time. Like yeah, that's what I will say, especially when people are doing when we're doing explosions, when we're doing like action sequences, I feel like
Hmm.
that's where it can run a little thin.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing about the way this movie treats its action sequences is they much more are centered around, as I mentioned earlier, an aspect of Minecraft's gameplay identity than being translated to people actually interacting with them, and in
Sure.
the isekai way of like, whoa, isn't this crazy that this is happening?
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
movie strikes this interesting balance between uh, the new characters that have just arrived into this crazy Minecraft world being confused by what's going on. But then with Jack Black as Steve and the general overworld place that they're in,
Mhm,
the the physics and the ways in which items work and the ways in which building works and like I'll say like the culture of this place
mhm.
is treated so much as this is just how it is, deal with it. And
Yeah.
I actually think that is, I love that. I love that it's not like um the blocks are floating, what the squelch, this is like
Oh,
no,
sure.
no,
Oh,
the blocks are
sure.
floating, like the chicken just turns into a thing when it happens. Like, of course, they like
Uh,
make a weird face, but like this movie definitely treats its own internal logic as it's cartoon logic to the nth degree. People bounce off of walls, they'll fall
mhm.
off of a thing, and they're totally fine. And I think from a pacing point of view, and like me just being able to settle in to this movie's own unique tone, I like that it is very much okay with anything weird happening in this world. Is that's just how it is.
Yeah, yeah, I can understand how that, and I'm not saying that we should be like, well, you see, we explain away the Minecraft physics this way, or this is why you can't get hurt in Minecraft world or
Yeah.
whatever. But also, we're saving time doing that, and we're allocating it where? We're allocating it onto what?
Yeah.
Is my thing. And to your point, also, the Emma Myers character is also kind of there to service that point of view a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
bit
yeah.
with the this place doesn't make any sense
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. And ultimately, I can't get the issue with the Minecraft movies. I can't get mad at too mad at any particular part of it because it all operates, like you said, with a similar sort of logic, and
Yeah.
whether you feel that is um, whether you feel that is intentional or, like I said, kind of a creator creators of the movie throwing logic out the window, throwing reason out the window, just being like, I don't know, just do shit for 90 minutes and then
Yeah.
roll the credits. I feel the same way. Though the point I was going to mention earlier that I forgot about was just a quick, sort of a drive-by insult, if you will,
Sure.
that it looks like a Super Bowl commercial a lot of the time.
Mm.
Like, I feel like a Jeep Grand Cherokee potentially could
Yeah.
drive out of that portal at any given moment and talk about how there's 0% ARP for the first 36 months or whatever.
Sure.
Kind of just the vibe of the whole film for me, and it feels very commercial in that way.
Interesting.
So that's sort of my treatise
Yeah,
on that.
I mean,
But
I'd be curious to know if there are any particular moments that stand out with that tone to you. Because of course, there's a Jeep Grand Cherokee joke. Um,
yeah,
Otherwise, the movie is
I'm
largely
not
absent
talking.
of like product placement.
I'm not talking about
Um,
like specific product placement. I'm
okay,
just talking about like it being a commercial unto itself. Like
yeah.
like I mentioned, not having anything material that it's really trying to get at,
Oh,
anything
sure.
that it's trying to impart. That it's just like it is a commercial for the Minecraft movie that is the Minecraft movie.
Well,
That
I mean,
is,
to that point though, I think what's
mhm,
interesting. I mentioned this to you before we started this review. Is
yeah,
the trailer? It tells you exactly what this movie is going to be,
yeah. Well,
even down to obviously a lot of the quotable lines or the moments or the
mhm,
performance of Jack Black or the visuals.
right.
But I think especially like the pacing and the editing, like
Yep.
the amount of bombast and color and crazy nonsense going on is as jam packed into this 90-plus minute feature film as it was into the the obviously much
Yes.
shorter trailer. And I think that's just I don't know. I guess
Hey,
compliment to
I said
the trailer creators.
like I said, I am not buying what this movie is selling. It is selling itself for 90 minutes, baby.
Yeah, yeah,
So Tucker, do we need to talk about like the characters in
yeah.
the
I think we
movie? Should we
should.
talk at least talk about like Jack Black or whatever? Should we start with him?
Yeah, we can. Sure.
Okay. Um, well, you start.
Okay. This is the most Jack Black that Jack Black has ever been, and he is
Yeah.
doing something with acting that I don't think has ever been done on screen. And I don't know if that's a compliment or an insult,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank
again,
you for starting there. I was.
again, it buys into this world, and that is the thing that why I appreciate Jack Black's performance, even if I was like rolling my eyes at it a lot of the
Mhm,
time. The way that he sells anything. This man is
mhm.
putting facial expressions and inflection on words and making up slang half the time he's on screen in a way that is so committed to that specific bit that it's obviously very intentional. And as I said, I think it does a lot to sell this world as just being the way it is, and it's goofy and it's weird, but if you buy into its logic, you can the world is your oyster. You can have your heart's desire. Creativity flows freely in this overworld
Mhm.
land. And so I ultimately do like Jack Black in this movie.
Sure.
Because he is doing a specific thing and leaning into it so hard. I have a hard time criticizing it, even if there are like it doesn't have any emotion. It doesn't have any like real personality other than whatever the hell he's doing.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
so its own thing though.
Steve is not a character. Steve is just Jack Black, which
Yeah.
is why they cast him. And he's like, I don't, and people have been, joking about how many video game adaptations Jack Black is in now. He is sort of like, perhaps the most prominent like gamer in Hollywood,
Sure.
I would say, and he operates in a very memeable fashion. I
Yeah.
mean, that is his whole personality at this point. At least
Mhm.
the part of it that he presents online with his his TikToks and his viral videos and everything like that. And even what people our age remember from him being in movies from our childhood. Like
Yeah.
that is he is operating in this very specific part of the public consciousness that is exactly what the Minecraft movie is going for. It is going for a bit of nostalgia and a bit of not taking itself
Yep.
seriously and a bit of quick, easy, consumable memery
Yeah.
humor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is what Jack Black is delivering here. So, like, I also find it hard to hate him, but I also feel that he is so deeply entrenched in the lifeblood of this movie that I can't be like, well, I like Jack Black in the movie because
Yeah.
Jack Black is the exact sensibility of the movie.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. He is not divorceable at all from the tone that we've been praising and criticizing this movie for this entire thing. The next step, though, is the other characters that this movie introduces.
Yes, of course. The isekai characters, as it were, as you said.
That range from Jason Momoa, who I think is second down in terms of selling a cartoonish, ridiculous character of a man. And I think he works in this movie. I think that he and Jack Black have some fun comedic timing back and forth. His physical presence and like the class that has with like this garbage man personality, I think is kind of fun. And so he works. And then there's three other characters that I don't
tell you
work.
that I was like, oh yeah, the two kids, and that's it. I was like, oh yeah, there's also Danielle Brooks in this movie.
Yeah, she doesn't need to be in this movie, man. She
doesn't. No, Tucker. I think you misunderstand because she needs to be the one that trains the wolves at the end. So that's why she needs to be in the whole movie.
Yeah, no, I think this movie's one of its problems is that it has this group of characters who don't really know one another and then don't really come to know one another particularly well because this movie's not particularly concerned with character writing. And I think that I would be more forgiving of any particular character in this movie if there were, I mean, frankly, just one or two less characters to deal with. And Danielle Brooks is the one that gets the brunt of that. She is the least involved in any sort of internal conflict between characters that we have. Jack Black, the main kid, and Jason Momoa are they're really the main characters. They have their own adventure and they each sort of have like a very light push and pull dynamic in terms of who's in charge or who's leading them where, or supporting one another. They do kind of have like a brothership that grows across the course of the film. And then of course there's the kid's sister who they have a bond. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And then there's Danielle Brooks who doesn't know any of them and isn't like she's just not really involved. Like it just serves to have a split narrative kind of partway through the movie, but then they just don't care about Danielle Brooks and Emma Myers, and then they just show up. So I feel bad for Danielle Brooks because like whatever, she's doing what she can with it. I don't think she's particularly funny or particularly good in this movie. But she's also the least necessary, so it's like, man, I don't know how to feel about this.
I mean, but like, also, if you're not Jason Momoa or Jack Black, what do you have to do in this movie other than tag along?
Yeah.
And crack a joke when the script demands it. And I'll say it. Jason Momoa and Jack Black being the most attuned joke crackers in the film, in Hollywood that are in this film, I should say. No one else is really operating at their level. No. So if you really want to go down this road, you're like, yeah, no one else is like really good or leaves a mark here because those two are the cartoon characters in the movie, like you said, and everyone else is a blah whatever, and the movie doesn't care to flesh them out, and so they end up being a blah whatever in comparison to the goofballs, zany, candy-colored gumballs rolling around for 90 minutes that are
grab
Jason
each other's
and
asses.
Jack. Exactly.
And so the two of them, I think, really do work. The one that I have a little bit more of a criticism towards is the main kid. I'm gonna get his name real quick.
Yeah, let's go here.
His name
Sebastian Eugene Hansen.
There's a weird thing going on with the letterbox right now where I'm like painting the screen. That's weird.
That's neat.
Sebastian Eugene Hansen is Henry.
What's the names for the rest of us, buddy?
Oops, I forgot. We just went black. I apologize for that. I forgot. I'm recording on OBS. Oopsie. He looks the part of the wide-eyed kid who's kind of nerdy but has this creative streak in him. I think he's good.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, continue.
He is. Actually, I'm totally lost my train of thought. Say what you're going to say.
Oh, I'm sorry. What I was going to say was he is the Steve of the movie in that he is the target audience of the movie. Being roughly like an 11-year-old boy, coming into it being like, oh, that kid's me.
Yeah.
And then that's exactly what he's there for. Is that he is just a mannequin that gets pushed around, and then he's like, "Yo, Jack Black, you're acting kind of weird." And Jack Black's like, "I'm in Minecraft, water bucket."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Ha ha ha."
I think that again, I like that character as a ostensibly audience insert, as he is the nerdy kid who who in reality wants to make fantastical things and bring joy to people, but the constraints of this is like the theme that the movie is going for is like the world
Yes.
is constraining down creativity, and it's good to lean into your creative strengths and show people what you truly believe and what you truly want to do, and that's what the kid is. He is learning that his skills that other people make fun of actually do have merit, and that he can, be of worth. And again, this kid looks the part. I like that idea of that character and that kind of being the core theme of Minecraft, because that is what that game has been to millions and millions and hundreds and millions of people, is a
Hmm.
place where and a game in a place where your creativity can be free and you can make friends online even if you aren't very sociable in real life. That is the culture of that game and why it's important to me, and I see that reflected in this movie and the themes centering around the kid who is the main character, but let's be
Yes.
real.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, this kid's not a very good actor, and he has this lisp that I guess is kind of endearing, but it mostly means that it just sounds like he's on his first take every time, and so any moment that I feel like I'm supposed to be bought into like this kid's wonderment, when he frankly when he's not talking, I believe his like facial expressions, but then he
Hmm.
talks and I'm like, yeah, it doesn't work.
Here's what I will say though. Here's what I will say about all of this is that the movie is not interested in giving that time, giving him
Yeah,
scenes to do
no, of
things,
course,
giving him time to
because
grow
shit's
and
gotta
be endearing.
happen.
There is okay. So forgive me if I'm misremembering because the most recent version I saw of this was not finished. Uh, But there is the opening section where it's Jack. No, no, I'm wrong. I'm wrong. The
What
opening of
is
the
happening?
movie is him being like, "I yearn for the mines," and then he
Correct.
goes in, and then it's like narration over everything. It's Steve's world,
Hmm.
whatever, and then we get the plot. And then there's roughly Tucker, how much time? 15
Yeah,
minutes charitably
yeah.
where we're
To
in the real
establish
world.
everyone else,
Yeah.
yes.
Um, and to be fair, that is where I felt like Jared Hess and his
Yes,
familiarity with
absolutely.
directive stuff was coming in. That stuff in the school is like,
Yeah,
oh, this is like Napoleon Dynamite.
absolutely.
Oh, I know this. This is something that the director is comfortable and has a tone awareness of.
Yeah,
That he's like, this is pretty charming. It feels like a fairly cheap like Cartoon Network original movie, but it has some charm to it. I will give it that. And like that's where the kid is the best in.
hmm,
Um, and then the movie is so preoccupied with being a Minecraft movie that it is not preoccupied with being a movie.
yeah,
And with time for its characters and
yeah.
arcs and everything else that I've been repeating and repeating in this video. I probably sound like a broken record at this point, but that is where I come down on it. Not that like, though this kid isn't good in the movie. It's like the movie isn't interested in making him good.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true, and especially by the end when there's this moment when they crash land and the kid's kind of knocked out for a second, and his sister's
Hmm.
worried for him. And then they have this moment where they kind of reconcile. It's like, oh, I thought I lost you, and then she says, "I thought I lost you," and then he also says, "I thought I lost you." I'm like, all right, that's fucking dumb. That's a bad line
Yeah.
right there.
It's
But
first pass. Tucker, 5 people wrote the script for this
yeah,
movie,
yeah.
or so we say,
Well,
or so it
and
says.
to be honest, I think that element of the movie being handled by so many writers of different degrees is
Hmm.
more to what the fuck do you do to make Minecraft into a movie? I don't think it's
Well,
it's
yes.
really mostly about the complexity behind the scenes of this. I do think you feel it in the fact that the character arcs and dynamics aren't well fleshed out, and a lot of
Hmm.
the line delivery that isn't comedy is really basic and not particularly interesting. But
Hmm.
the reason why it took so many people to figure this out is because it's a challenge to make this movie work. And to again, to be fair to the movie, and again, where I will praise it, the script of the movie is mostly the situations and scenario of the movie. Of this
Hmm.
is what the world is. Here's how we will treat it. Here's how we will interact with it, and that is where I think the movie works. And so I do think that the characters are one note. I think that a lot of the actors aren't given enough to do. I think that the emotional moments when they try to happen can fall completely flat because there's no setup,
Hmm.
as you said, or are not enough to make them pay off in particularly
Hmm.
substantial ways. But I respect the writing job that went into making this movie what it is, because it I don't like using this as a defense of anything, but it
Okay, here we
is
go.
what it is. This movie,
It is what it is.
This movie is its own style. It is its own pacing. It is its own sense of energy and pacing that no other movie really tries to have. And I'll circle back to the point that where I want to end this is why I appreciate this movie and why I think it will be appreciated later down the line is because it speaks very strongly to a passion that obviously many people have for Minecraft. That I, again, as a fan, think that they did. I felt a passion for the source material.
Sure.
And because it's committed to its own style, again, if you click with it, I think it will work really well. I think back to some corny 80s, 90s, 2000s comedies that if you aren't a child of that era, if you aren't immersed in the culture that it is representing, it pushes you away very hard. I had that experience when I watched the Speed Racer movie. That was very clearly a cartoon adaptation that was made by people that have a passion for the source material. And I feel very I hated that movie, by the way. I really do not like Speed Racer. And I think a Minecraft movie is the Speed Racer of now, where it is a very faithful and passionate adaptation of something that its fan base will really, really resonate with and find. I think this movie will have a complete reclamation later down the line as camp and with a lot of heart.
Sure. Okay.
Where that has happened for many movies that are really dorky, but dorky in a way that its audience finds appealing. I think Minecraft is that for this generation.
Yeah. What I will say is that the movies that you cite, like Speed Racer, for example, was not appreciated in its time by anyone. People thought it was a bad movie, and also it didn't make any money. Minecraft is a very different approach here.
Sure.
Minecraft is making fucking money hand over fist.
Yeah.
I think it's a very intentionally designed thing that, sure, this movie may, people are already calling it camp, though. People are already enjoying it, ironically, because that is how it is meant to be enjoyed.
Yeah.
And, that's not something that I gain any entertainment value out of. People who are reevaluating Speed Racer are coming at it being like, no, there's a lot of heart and visual style here that the Wachowskis put in that are really trying to push the bounds of cinematic, digital filmmaking and, integrating live action elements with completely outsized, outlandish CGI worlds.
I would say the exact same thing about a Minecraft movie, by the way.
See, I find it, for me, it seems so cheap. Like I said, that there is nothing there there's nothing there if you strip away the design of things, and everything is backlit, and it feels unintentional. And the story structure is paper thin, and everything I've already noted. And
I felt the same way about Speed Racer.
Well, fair point. And I don't remember Speed Racer that well, and I also don't think of that movie super fondly. I'm not a huge fan of that either. But I'm just saying, the difference in how the movies are treated in this era right now. Obviously, Minecraft just came out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is my attitude towards it. Is people look at it and they feel the earnestness and oh, this wasn't as appreciated or loved in its time as it should have been. And Minecraft movie is being enjoyed by a great many people right now.
Definitely.
It is basically designed in a lab for 22-year-olds. People are roughly our age to go to it, pop a weed gummy, and then give it 5 stars on Letterboxd and say absolute cinema. Martin Scorsese meme. And I don't know. It feels a little disingenuous to me from that standpoint.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, and I certainly understand viewing it from that angle. But I also do think, and this is kind of my closing point, is I guess I do fall into that camp. I'm not giving this movie 5 stars when we do our reviews.
Okay.
I'm just just putting that out there. And I didn't pop a weed gummy before, so I'm just a little bit from that. But I think this movie also, in the way that something like Napoleon Dynamite or Speed Racer, just those are the two off the top of my head.
Yep, sure.
Those movies are very much a reflection of the culture of that time. And I do think that a Minecraft movie, in the way that you just said, is a reflection of the culture of this time in terms of what a lot of people look for in their entertainment. And whether that is a pro or con for you is obviously very subjective, but I actually really do appreciate the movie for leaning into memes, because that's what a lot of people like nowadays, and having a movie that embraces that. And I think doesn't always work in that way, but I think this movie is pretty funny at the end of the day. I think there's a lot of really silly scenarios that I was chuckling at. I certainly had a smile on my face the entire time.
Go for it. Yeah.
I like this movie as an encapsulation of the culture of now, and why a lot of people appreciate the entertainment that they do, even if it is TikTok, even if it is internet memes. That is culture, and I do think I like that is being reflected in a major theatrical release, because I like when movies are a encapsulation of the culture of their time, and I think that Minecraft is an example of that to a very interesting degree.
Yeah, well, I don't like the post-ironic film culture that is
Totally
being
fair.
cultivated right now.
Totally fair.
And I feel that Minecraft is a like strengthening and reinforcing of that.
Yeah.
And it is
There's
being
a character called Chungus in this movie.
that is being embraced with millions and millions and billions of dollars.
Yeah.
With that all being said, I also wanted to point out the things that were added from the two versions, like the things that are clearly added after the fact, that are like the "Hey kids, we get you" stuff. Again, another like sort of ham-fisted attempt to be like, oh no, it doesn't really work. It doesn't matter because we're going to be stupid anyway.
Yeah.
And those are the Boothang needle drop when Steve is fighting the zombies for the first time.
Sure.
When he pops up before he says "I am Steve," and then when General Chungus, who we just said, says "I have to unalive you" or whatever.
Yeah.
There are two things that are not in the work print version that were added in after the fact. So
Sure.
take that for what it's worth, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is
and again,
not a whole lot.
To where I give the movie credit, I think when you're making a movie that is meant to appeal strongly to a certain demographic and all their sensibilities, whether that is a pro or a con or not to different people, I appreciate that. As you mentioned, these are things that they added at last minute to reflect that culture, to appeal to that demographic, to that specific audience. And so when General Chungus says, "I'm gonna have to unlive you," I roll my eyes because I don't say that, and I don't think that's funny. But again, it's no one. I don't think another major theatrical movie, is going to use the term "unalive" in that way ever again, and never did before.
Yeah, I mean,
and so I'm
you're
like,
right, but like
that's a of now thing, and I kind of like that.
But here's my thing about it is that like movies, why do movies need to do that? Why do movies need to be
They don't
like
need to.
here's a
They can,
here's a,
though.
here's a piece of candy for you, kid. Here's a something that here's a thing that you recognize. Like I don't know, movies are more than that. Movies are and perhaps they should be. Perhaps they shouldn't be. Just this easily consumable slop for the masses. I don't know. Oh, Tucker, 2.2 out of 10.
I'll go 7.4 out of 10. I think this is a very enjoyable film that reflects a really interesting set of current cultural sensibilities and very strongly speaks to its audience and does it with a lot of, I think, passion and heart. So I did really enjoy it. My audience also enjoyed it, and I'm very glad that we got to have an analytical conversation about the pros and cons of this movie, of which there are many. So thank you, everyone, for joining us for this discussion of a Minecraft movie. We will be back for, of course, the sequel to this movie that is already being worked on in the mines where Alex shows up. And now we get two cartoony characters.
Yes, that's right.
Yippee! Yay! The Alex post-credit scene.
I left before the Alex post-credit scene, so I had to watch it on Twitter.
And what they did is what they do in the end of the post-credit scenes with Sonic movies, where you don't see the face because they haven't cast the actor yet.
They haven't cast that person yet.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'll probably be fucking Kate McKinnon or whatever. Who gives a shit? It's gonna make a bit. Tucker, you can't groan. You can't groan. You like this movie. You can't groan. You're in support of what this movie's doing and reflecting the culture. I can groan.
I can groan at Kate McKinnon.
Oh, well, I suppose no one's going to take away that right just yet.
Just yet. All right. Well, we will see you guys next time for more movie reviews. Thanks for watching.